How you doing, everybody? We are up in Bilpin, which is on the edge of the Blue Mountains. This is apple growing country, isn't it?
Absolutely, yep. Orchards and raspberries and all sorts of stuff. It's like a food bowl. It's green. Today it's a bit rainy, but it's a beautiful day and the perfect day to go hunting for cars.
Now, we have done a couple of barn finds before, but today is something special. The last one we did, of course, was the 240Z. Today, and I can see it poking out right now, we've been told about something very special that's been sitting up in this shed for years and years and years. And today, we're about to go pick it up, and you are coming with us.
Just don't trip over a chicken.
Or the mad postie bike. Bilpin is a little over an hour northwest of Sydney in the mountain region, and this area is famous for its apples. When you head further out from the city like this, there are heaps of farms, and that means heaps of barns and heaps of sheds. Rare things are, by their very nature, hard to find, but once you head further out from the city, you might just stumble over some gold. And there's something truly special about finding a piece of automotive history that's been parked up for years and preserved like a dusty time capsule. But what is automotive gold? Well, that's an elusive question that depends on your taste of cars. But for us, this car that we've discovered is very exciting, and we're about to meet the current owner, Bill, who owns this farm. Hey Bill, how you doing, mate?
Good to see you.
Everybody, this is Bill from Shields Orchard. We're up here in Bilpin, of course. You grow apples.
Correct. We grow 12 varieties of apples. Our business is about pick your own, so people come here and pick their apples. And what we're finding is people want to come here to escape Sydney as well.
Yeah, nice. I can understand why.
So we have 12 varieties that stretch from February through to the end of May, and they're not all ripe at once, fortunately. And we've also got the Julia apple, which is an apple which we discovered here, which I named after my wife.
Oh, awesome. She must be stoked with that.
Yeah, you can't name it after a barmaid you knew in Coonabarabran, you know.
You can try, but Barry's not a great name for an apple, is it?
Barry apple.
Now, mate, we're actually here to pick up, there's two of these cars. I can see, this is the first time seeing them.
Yeah.
One of them looks better than I thought, one of them looks worse. How long have they been here? Why are they here? And just tell me everything.
Well, the two that are here, one of them was registered and we were using, and then someone gave me another one which was registered, and it was a bit rougher, so I used it. And I was going to turn the other one into a rooftop camper, but it sat there, and I got the sheet of aluminium, which didn't require a lot of welding, but too busy.
Yeah, okay.
And do you use the cars around here? Is that the idea?
No, I never used them really in the orchard. They were just basically, you know, road vehicles. The second one I bought for spare parts. So they've been sitting here, I don't know, the good one's been sitting here for 8 or 10 years, and the other one I've never run, but it's complete.
Great.
Awesome.
All right, well, let's have a look. So they've been here for 10 years.
At least.
At least. One of them hasn't run. It's time for you to see. Here it is, everybody. We're picking up 2 Subaru Brumbys.
Yes.
Hey! Now, Marty's a big Subaru fan, of course, so Martin, tell us everything. What do you know?
These things, Brumbies, in America they were known as brats, and they were super popular everywhere. They were known for having like a jumper seat on the back, which was a big deal because you could sit on the back of your ute, which never happened here. They're a bit quirky, like all Subarus of the era. They're actually sort of front-wheel drive, but then they had a lever you pull and then it goes four-wheel drive, so not the typical all-wheel drive that we know so well with WRXs and stuff. And just wildly popular because they're a ute, and in Australia they were really popular when your other option was like a HQ or maybe a Commodore ute, maybe, but this kind of did a bit more. You could do four-wheel drive and you could go on the beach, you'd use it around your farm, and there's heaps of these squirreled away in farms all around Australia, just like here. So, in a barn.
Yep, and it smells exactly as it should for its age. So the plan is to take both of them and basically use one of them for a parts car, exactly Bill's original plan, and then completely and thoroughly restore this one here.
Yep.
This is the good one, right?
Yep. And do it as good as new, like as close as we can get it to how it would have rolled off the factory floor.
Martin, this is mighty come on. It'll be better than new when it's done. So I think there's two things that we've got to do. We've got to get the good one on the trailer.
Yep.
We'll come back to get the other one afterwards, and then also we'd love to try an apple. Can we
Not
try
a
an
problem.
apple?
Yep.
So I reckon let's get it on the trailer, let's have a look around the car, and then let's eat an apple.
Sounds good.
Sounds great. Thanks for having us up here, mate.
A pleasure.
Awesome to meet you.
Pleasure, yeah.
Very keen.
So do you know what this was originally used for, Bill?
Well, yeah, it was my sister-in-law's, and she actually had goats, and so she had a cage that fitted over the top.
I love goats. So I grew up on a goat stud, goat stud. I love goats.
To carry the goats around, and as well as that, she had a cover to go over the top of that,
like
so
a
the
tonneau
goats
cover.
didn't get too windy.
Why did the goats need an Anderson plug, do you reckon?
Charge their phones,
Yes,
obviously.
that's right.
This is pretty straight, Bill. This is like got, a couple little dents in it, but it seems to
is.
survive pretty well. So because it's undercover, I guess,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We got the call about these cars through someone that works at Subaru Australia who happened to spot them while they were picking some apples. An idea was baked up to restore and modify one of these iconic utes. Why? Well, Subaru Australia helps support a not-for-profit called the Australian Road Safety Foundation by supplying cars for their fundraising raffles. So if everything works out like we hope, this car will be a candidate for that too. While there's a pretty good example here, it also hasn't moved in a decade, so first up we need to get it on a trailer and get it back to our shed so we can check it out properly.
So Brumbies can cost quite a bit of money depending on what condition they're in.
Yep.
2 cars that haven't been running for like a decade. It is questionable and there's probably not a whole lot of interest. So we actually bought this one for $3,000 and it came with that one for free as a parts car. It might seem like cheap for a Subaru while you're looking at it, but also running a farm, you need space, you need brain space to actually do other stuff. So it's a win-win for everyone.
And it's also condition-wise, whether it's running or not, flat tyres, destroyed tyre on the back. So we're taking a bit of a gamble in terms of this. But like this kind of car, if you do want to restore something, a lot of the time and effort usually goes into the bodywork, like straightening things out and dealing with rust. But I can't really see.
Great.
There's going to be a little bit of typical Subaru in the windscreen, which is my favourite, but nothing that can't be fixed.
Yeah,
and the kind of stuff you see people pull out of swamps.
Yeah,
it can all be fixed, but it's how much time and money you want to put into it.
It's dirty and it stinks like really, really badly mold, but all of that stuff inside is going in the bin anyway.
Yep.
And when you just look here where all the seals are, and probably because it has been under here, it's not rusty, it's not dirty. It's
pretty good.
Doesn't have rats or pig's ears in it.
A couple of spiders.
But the inside looks great. Like all the door cards look really nice. Yep. Even the headlining looks good, dude. It's it's amazing. Yep. Anyway, let's load it up.
Yeah, let's go. Highly recommend purchasing from an orchard. If you have an orchard near you and they've got cars in them, you won't leave hungry. This is delicious. Oh, goodness. All right, you can come here and do like picking. You can book it.
Yeah.
Shields Orchard. You book it, right?
Yeah, just give us a ring or a text or just look on our website and...
Come and hang out, have a picnic, pick some apples, and you can take them with you.
Yeah.
Even though these Brumbies look like something out of the 70s or the 80s, they were still being sold right up until the first WRX came out in the early 1990s. They were popular with farmers because the selectable 4-wheel drive system locked the driveline together to get you out of any muddy bog holes in your paddock, but they were also reliable and not too heavy on fuel. In the USA, these were called a brat. Subaru loved their acronyms, and so the bi-drive recreational all-terrain transporter was born. It was demand from Subaru's international markets for small utes and pickup trucks that spurred this one into reality. However, it was never actually sold in Japan.
It's also Subaru's 50th anniversary in Australia, so what better way to celebrate than restore a mad old Brumby and just make it like you would want to drive it off the showroom floor today.
So a massive thank you to Subaru Australia, who are going to be sponsoring this build and actually funding getting this thing back on the road again, and then all those proceeds going to a worthy cause. This is awesome. All right, let's hit the road, mate.
I'm putting in my order for Subaru Genuine Parts right now. Coming at you, boys.
We did one of the most Australian things ever and put a ute onto a trailer behind another ute and then started the drive back to our own shed.
All right, everybody, we are back at Super Garage and it's time to have a look at exactly what it is that we've purchased. Now, I've just punched the plate number in to check its rego status. It's a 1992 white Subaru 1800 series utility and it was last registered 8th of July 2011. So it probably is correct that it hasn't been started for 10 years. We're going to try and start it today with you first of all, let's see what we got, Martin. Spiders. We got spiders and bugs.
A lot of spiders. I just flicked a little spider off and then an even bigger spider came out and chased after it, so I'm assuming Mummy Spider wasn't happy with that. There's a lot of these around, at least these were really popular in Australia. I know they were quite popular in the US as well. Why? Lightweight, all-wheel drive, selective all-wheel drive, four-wheel drive. A lot of space in the back actually for what it is, and quite a useful little car. They also weren't that expensive, and if you think about what your other options were when these were coming out, it was like a early Commodore Ute maybe, or I guess a Hilux or something, but again, not as many options. They were just, for whatever reason, they ticked the box at the time and they were really, really popular. So they are out there, and parts aren't too much of a problem, but you can modify them to make them even better using an assortment of Subaru parts bin bits.
Well, that's what we're going to do, Martin. Now, the last service, I've just had a look, the last service was carried out on the 21st of September 1999 at 120,000 Ks. How many Ks has it done now? So, and it does look like, for a period of time certainly, it was being looked after fairly regularly.
Twice that. It's
Oh,
done
really?
Twice that. It's done 240,000.
Okay,
That's
great.
a lot.
So it may not have had a service for a little while, but everything in here is looking excellent, Martin. Look at this go. Fuji Heavy Industries, Tokyo, Japan.
There you go.
The Subaru, what does MV mean? Is that what they call them? The Subaru,
Probably like multi-purpose vehicle or something. Isn't
or
it?
maybe motor vehicle,
Sure.
even. All right, Martin. Did we even look under the bonnet?
Do you know what's weird? You could buy, I just realised, you could buy these new, the same time you could buy an RS Liberty Turbo, which you've seen on Mighty Car Mods. We've done them back in the day. They're one of my favourite cars, one of my first cars. You could buy this or an RS Liberty wagon. This feels so much more old school, doesn't it? Like
Or
this
both,
one.
Martin. That's the trick. All right, let's see if you can crack it. Did we even look?
I don't know which. Does it go that way or that way?
Oh, I assumed it would. Oh, no,
It's normal.
just like a normal bonnet.
Ooh, it's missing the spare
Oh.
tyre.
Here we go. The spare tyre, is that where the spare tyre is meant to
Yeah,
go?
spare tyre lives up the top here. And these are old school carbies things. These also have like a different sort of flat motor.
Yep.
They're still flat. They still have like a very similar construction to Liberties and Rexies of the time, but just a little bit different and a lot more old school.
How many cars have you seen that have got a jack under the hood?
Yeah.
That's what. Are there any others that you can think of? Is that like a Brumby thing?
This also is like a selective four-wheel drive where it normally runs in front-wheel drive, and then when you pull the lever, it engages the back, which is completely different to what they were doing at the same time with Liberties, Turbo Liberties, and then Imprezas, which, if that's 1993, I think that's when we got our first Impreza. Yeah. So it's a different generation of cars, but they must have been so good and so popular and selling so well, they just kept doing them. So air
What's
cleaner.
the bet that there's an air filter in there, Martin? What do you think?
Yeah, it'll have one for sure, man. Country car, looked after, loved. There we go.
There we go. Look at
Bit
that.
oily.
Very oily,
Yeah,
but it's in there.
very oily, but it's there,
which is
isn't it?
amazing.
This is the kind of thing where you're probably going to be spraying a bit of stuff down there and seeing if it'll go. I doubt that it'll have any fuel in it, and any fuel that was will be well and truly gone by now.
Should we just try and turn it over though? Like, let's just get some power on it. Where's the battery
It
meant
doesn't
to
have
be?
one, but I think I've got a spare battery down.
Great. All right. I reckon do you want to try and start this thing with us? We do too.
Yep.
With the collective power of the internet spirit, we're going to try and start it. Let's do it.
Pretty sure this is a battery out of the K-Truck
Yeah.
or similar. So this might do what we need it to do. It's the right size terminals, like the old school, like the Jap style small terminals.
There's a lot of extra stuff hanging off these, isn't there?
Yeah. Lights, probably foggies and stuff. That's positive, is it? Yep, and that's negative. Let's give that a shot. Nothing exploded. That's
Martin, try the horn first. Let's just make sure we got some horn.
No, but what we can do is put a jumper pack on it now as well. Because that battery could also be completely flat, but at least it should run.
We grabbed a jumper pack and it's time to see if we can actually get this thing started. Yep, the clock's working and we've got reds.
Oh shit.
Horn works. I've never seen this before. The little passenger handle comes out and down like that. So you can just hold on to it and then when you're not using it, up it goes again. That's rad.
All right, see if it's got any oil in it. And it does, it's pretty black, but it's up to the F line, little dot there. And now we see if it starts. It's been a long time. So
No fuel though, right?
no fuel. I mean, we can spray a bit of spray down there and see if it goes, but just kick it, man. Make sure it's in neutral and give it a kick. See
I'm
what happens.
excited, dude.
Yeah, I'm be very interested to see. That was spray. That was with some spray. Ready?
It might go. Okay, here we go. 3, 2.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. That's
It
cool.
runs.
That's awesome. I mean, it means the engine's not sick, but I still reckon we pull it out anyway.
Oh, the engine's going in the bin for
bin,
sure.
hard.
Absolutely.
There's
No,
heaps
it's
better
going
options.
in the bin, except of course we just want to make sure that it actually run.
That's mad.
Martin, we've now got some planning to do.
We do.
And we got to work out whether we
Oh. Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
and then
100.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I got plans. But the plans with this probably have to wait because there's bigger problems to do with this, rust spots and some pretty sad paint. I understand some people run cars like this and go, it's got patina, but I want to make this like properly
No, it's going to
nice.
be great. Now, it does look a little bit cleaner than when you saw it last time because it was absolutely filthy after sitting for over a decade, and so we took it outside and gave it a bit of a clean.
I was actually pretty surprised just how clean this car is underneath all that mud. Usually when you see all that, you think, oh no, it's going to be rusted out shell. Actually, it's in really good condition and we got really lucky. The car was stored in a barn, which made a huge difference. So a lot of that mud just fell off. And today, hopefully, we won't be covered in all of it as we begin to strip the car.
So what are we doing today? Well, the first step is we're going to completely blow this car apart. So the engine's coming out, that's going in the bin. The interior's coming out. We want to see what's going on underneath everything, anything that's hidden from view.
We are going to completely strip this thing. The driveline's coming out, anything that's attached to the outside's coming out, and the interior is also being removed because we are going to take this right back to basics and paint it.
This build will be one of the biggest projects that we've ever attempted in the history of making Mighty Car Mods, and it's going to take our abilities and patience to the limit. Not only are there technical limitations and mechanical hurdles in the way, the car will also need to be signed off by a qualified engineer to make it able to be driven legally on Australian roads when it eventually finds its way into one lucky viewer's garage. Our first step is to get rid of everything that we no longer need, and in our case, that means pretty much everything, as we're going to be replacing most components with new and custom parts. From the wheels and brakes through to the driveline, engine and even the interior, it's a massive job and we're going to be working solidly on it for at least a few months. That in itself may seem like it's a long time, but a restoration of this detail and scope is something that's usually only attempted once in a lifetime, so we're definitely going to need to call in reinforcements when the going gets tough. It is an absolute mess in here, and by absolute mess, we've got all sorts of wiring out the wazoo, and we also have a dead creature.
That's a bone, isn't it? And some meaty looking stuff.
Oh yeah, it's like
and
a bit of fur, a bit of bone. It's some
sur-
kind of creature that's been living up here.
Surrounded by turd as well.
This here though, this side and the front appears to be all clear now. There's a weird rod here that goes straight down the middle that we don't know what that does, but I'm going to take that off in a second. How's your side looking, mate?
Somehow related to the clutch. My side's looking all right. I took off like 1 million fuel and vacuum hoses. It's worth remembering this was done in like the emissions times, you know, when it's like, oh, how we make our old carby things still pass the emissions and not use much fuel. That was one reason these cars were popular. They didn't use that much fuel compared to like a giant V8 ute that you might buy for your farm, and also it was four-wheel drive. So one of the reasons it's popular, but also complex. Like, look at all this. So later model stuff will not be as complex, which is hopefully what we'll be able to put in this.
Yeah, so look, there's just a couple of other things that have got to come off, and then we can get this out, Martin.
Yep. The idea is to get the driveline out, the engine out, gearbox out, clear up the engine bay, start to pull off any sort of trims, get it ready for paint.
We think we've undone everything.
We think.
This will be our first attempt at trying to put this back where it belongs in a museum.
Yep.
A Subaru museum. It's coming, Martin.
Starting to slip on
No, need to go up.
Forklift time.
Still something down there.
Drop the sway bar, we'll make it easier for ourselves. All right, that might buy us a bit more space.
Second attempt with the sway bar gone.
This is momentous, people.
There it is, people. As you can see behind me, the heart, the now non-beating heart of the Brumby it's time for it to go to a better place. What's going to go in its place, you may be asking? We're going to show you soon. There's a decent amount of space in the engine bay, which opens up some exciting opportunities when it comes to power plants. And later in this video, I'll show you what I've bought to transplant into the bay that'll upgrade power, modernise features, and also maintain the purity of this Brumby.
The next job now is to pull out everything in the engine bay that's in the way of paint, because we are changing the colour of the car. We want to change the colour of the engine bay. Anything you can see here needs to be removed. So some of this stuff will go back in, like maybe aircon, for example, or a charcoal canister or a radiator overflow bottle. But all this old junk is going straight in the bin. We'll do a similar thing with the interior, although not the whole interior, because some of it won't change. Like the headlining is pretty good, so that can stay. But other bits and pieces like the seats and that will come out.
When you're excited about working on your project car, it's easy to underestimate how long or how hard a job is going to be. Stripping a car entirely back to its panels is a huge undertaking, because every last bit of wiring, rubber, glass and the mechanical parts need to come out. And if they're going back in again, they need to be catalogued and put safely aside. Although I was trying to get the windscreen out complete, I broke it, so a new one will need to go back in when we're done. A panel shop can do this part of the job for you, but by doing all the stripping yourself, you can save some budget for mods, leaving them to do what they are best at, which is paint. And maybe next time they can pull the windscreen out too. Along with the engine bay parts, I'm going to strip the seats, the plastic interior, the dash, the steering wheel and everything in and around the tray in the back. Any of the hanging panels like the guards I'm also going to pull off so I can clean underneath them and get rid of all the country bush dust. The paint shop asked that I supply the car as clean as possible, so I hit it with some degreaser and then the beefiest electric pressure washer I could find. Dirt and dust is the enemy of a good paint job, so the effort I put in here will pay dividends later on.
Brumby is clean as I'm going to be able to get it. Next stop, VIP Smash Repairs to see some friends of mine to get this thing painted.
Brothers Joey and Alex started VIP Smash Repairs together not too long ago, but have been watching Mighty Car Mods since they were in high school, and they've agreed to help us turn this Brumby from farm truck to showstopper. I've given them a pretty tight timeline, but to my surprise, within a week they called me to say the car is blown apart and prep is underway, so come down and check it out.
The car has been laid out like an IKEA flat pack. And why is that exciting? Because today it's all going to start to get stripped, all the old paint's going to come off. The guys have already removed the panels and done that sort of stuff. The car is looking really, really good. And I've made it easier for them because I haven't brought them something that is completely rusted and rubbish. So now just the hard work begins. The guys are just going to get into it. I'm going to work experience kit a little bit. And then hopefully the end of today, we're also going to spray out our colour and we're going to see the colour for the first time on a sample card. We can take it away and see what it looks like in the light. Then we can tweak it if we need to. And then once the car's high-filled, we'll be back hitting it with colour.
I think a big reason why I get so excited about a build like this is the feeling that you're repairing something rather than just sticking it in the bin. While I'm known for that comment and its application to dirty Hondas, I actually think there's a real joy to be found in bringing something back to life, making it as good or better than when it rolled off the showroom floor. It takes a huge amount of time, thought, skill, effort and of course manual labour, but the results are truly worth it and I cannot wait to see how this thing turns out.
Our spray out card, so this is autumn green metallic. Now it does look kind of brown and then sort of flips to a greeny colour. When you see it on an entire car, it does sort of glow a little bit more green. This is a colour you see on Outbacks and a couple of like really modern Subarus. When this is combined with like black powder coated satin black bull bar and all the trims and everything, I think it's going to look amazing. So I'm very keen and very excited to see a modern colour on an old car, but still pays homage to the sort of oldness of it. Like I don't think it would be right to put WRC bright blue on it. It would just look a bit weird, whereas I think this is going to look understated and also awesome. So a little bit more work for the boys to do with high fill. We're going to come back when it's time to stick on the final colour, and then we're going to see the Brumby completely painted.
I've been completely blown away by how efficiently the guys at VIP Smash have brought this together, and I cannot wait to see the car in its final colour.
This project is coming together crazy fast while all the driveline and mechanical stuff is happening. Joey, Alec and the boys at VIP Smash have also been very, very busy getting it finished off. Since you last saw it, some high fill's gone on and they've blocked it back to make it nice and smooth. The car is in the booth about to get the colour, which means we're going to see it right now.
This has turned out even better than I could have imagined. It's a huge deal picking your final colour and a huge amount of work if you want to change it again. Luckily for us, the modern green works brilliantly on the lines of the old Brumby. And while it spends some more time in the booth hardening, I'm heading back to Super Garage as my good friend has just made another purchase.
We have come to an exciting part of this build. My good friend has been out searching car sales, searching Gumtree, searching Marketplace, trying to find us a donor vehicle to get all the parts we need to make this Brumby just bellissimo. He has found something. He's just got back. I can hear it. Here it is, people. Oh God.
This is the sweetest smelling Forester I've ever experienced. When you're buying a car for like under $5,000, normally you're getting absolute rubbish. This is amazing.
Dude,
we just picked this up 10 minutes ago from Marrickville. He asked $4,500. We never pay asking price. $4,000, manual, smells great, really heavy duty clutch. That might need to change, man. It's like popping my hip out.
I'm going to say what everyone's thinking. This is too clean.
Yeah. So we're going to find out that it's stolen. No, it's legit. It's just, there's hardly any around. We've been looking for a very, very long time for this. Weirdly, you can still get turbo ones of this kind of era, but not naturally aspirated ones. I've never seen it before. Never seen it before today. The Subaru Forester has been made in Japan since 1997, originally built on the same platform as the Impreza. This is the first generation, the SF, that was built as a station wagon, but with more clearance like an SUV, and people loved them so much that they were sold all over the world. In Australia, these are a fairly common car due to being all-wheel drive, small enough for city driving, but large enough to be capable on the back roads and snow country.
So there you have it, Subaru Foresters. These ones usually end up doing a lap of Australia with a couple of stinky backpackers in them that haven't had a shower for way too long and end up being sold for scrap. This one smells good, is in good condition and will be perfect for our car, which I think will become a classic.
Hand me your telephone, Martin.
Oh, why? Why?
And Face ID it.
Yep, done.
You done it? All right. You know how on your phones, if you press the little star button, it says favourite? Marty's favourite list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9 of these people own Subarus. So I'm just going to hit one by random and go, what are you doing tonight? This Forester is going to supply a lot of the parts that we need for our Brumby, but it's going to be a big, messy job. So we've invited a bunch of mates over to Super Garage who are going to help us pull it apart.
You may have worked out by now that we're going to be EJ swapping our Brumby. The EA81 engines that come in them originally are 1.8 litre, carby and getting hard to find parts for. This upgrade will give us a bump in power, good fuel economy, and heaps more access to parts that are still available, while still keeping the purity alive. We're going to be using as much of the Forester driveline and electrical parts as we possibly can, so we'll be stripping this Forester right back down to basics. We've chosen a 2-litre EJ20 out of this specific Forester as they have a good balance of weight, power and willingness to rev, which in a Brumby will be great fun. You also don't need to cut up your classic car to make it fit, and importantly, it's possible to engineer the modified car in our state for road use. Thanks to some help from our awesome group of mates, we've got the driveline out in just one evening's work. There's still heaps more to do, but we are making great progress.
A massive thank you to everybody that came down to help us strip this Forester. This Forester is actually in incredible condition for its age, and I'm very happy that the sacrifice that it's made is going to live on in our mad Brumby.
That's right, it's not going to get scrapped either, so we're just actually going to get rid of it, basically give it away as a good rolling shell. Maybe someone will turbo convert it or do something cool with it, but it has given all its best bits over to our Brumby, and I'm glad we managed to get one that's in really good condition, because that will actually save us a whole bunch of time. The Brumby is painted and looks freaking amazing.
Now we have over there a whole pile of Forester stuff, and we've got a painted Brumby, and now the job, of course, is to put them together. And today we're going to be doing that with a little bit of help from an expert.
Dave from Subaru is here. What's Subaru? Well, they're actually based in Perth, and he's come all the way to Sydney, which is like flying from New York to LA, just saying it's a freaking long way, to help us. Dave, thanks for coming, man.
Thanks for having me, Marty.
Now, you're no stranger to Brumbies, so can you tell me what we're looking at? Like, what kind of Brumby is this? Tell me everything.
So this would be a early 90s, late 80s Brumby.
Correct.
Yep, 92.
Yep.
Commonly used for a sort of a farm vehicle originally in Australia. And yeah, it's got a few things missing. Be good to put this Brumby back to work.
So Dave, what got you into the whole Brumby thing? Like, how did you become a fan of them, and how'd you end up here?
I was a big fan of them in the sort of late 90s when I first got my driver's license. I liked the wagons. Back then, the Brumbies were a bit out of reach financially for a young bloke on his P-plates. Just loved the shape, and as time's gone on, the wagons are nearly extinct, but the Brumbies live on for farms. All sorts of people lowering them, lifting them, all sorts of things.
Why do you reckon they're so popular? What is it about them?
I think it's the shape. I honestly think it's the shape. It's that El Camino sort of look.
Yeah, like a mini El Camino, isn't it?
Yeah, like a mini El Camino. Look, they're really popular worldwide. The Brat in America and the Brumby here in Australia.
We are going for a sort of on-road vehicle more so, which is why we've chosen to go for the all-wheel drive gearbox out of the Forester.
Yes.
Also dual range. Now I understand that makes things a little bit more difficult when it comes to like custom shafts and tail shafts and things like that. We've also got some conversion gear that you have brought with you.
Yes.
So maybe we'll have a bit of a look at that.
Yep.
And then we've basically got to shoehorn our Forester driveline in. Is that sort of how it works?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. A bit of customisation of tail shafts, the gear linkages, and a gearbox crossmember.
Sweet. So this should drive like a much more modern Subaru ideally, but still look cool like this.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. Well, let's have a look at some of the gear that you brought with you, and then we'll get into it.
No worries, Marty.
Over the years, Dave has turned his passion for Brumbies and early Subarus into a small manufacturing operation, and is the guy on the west coast of Australia to see when your Brumby needs some love. He's developed a bunch of parts to both repair and modify these cars to help keep them on the road for years to come, and I can't wait to get them into our car.
So we're at the stage now where it's painted, but basically nothing else is done. Underneath it's a completely stock Brumby. But luckily, Dave has designed a bunch of parts that makes these things extra cool, specifically a lift kit and also a 5-stud conversion. So Dave, tell me a bit about this, because maybe we'll start with your 5-stud conversion because it's in front of us. So what is involved in this kit?
So basically we've got some custom-made hubs here. They're going to go on the rear. So we're going to be adapting the rear drums that are on the Brumby from factory. We're putting the Forester disc brakes onto it.
Oh, so disc brake conversion as well.
Absolutely,
so not just
absolutely.
So 5-stud.
What's also involved is the Forester has a rear handbrake.
Yeah.
Whereas the Brumby has front handbrakes.
Sounds bizarre. Hey, yank the handbrake and then the car like.
Absolutely. So these are custom-made handbrake cables that will adapt it. So we've got the handbrake cable on the back.
So what I think is a bit clever about this, so that goes onto the basically like diff, like rear diff
That's
housing, whatever. and that allows us to bolt in the Forester hubs.
Yes, we'll be up. Well, the Forester backing plate.
The backing plate, and then the hub goes
for the
into
brake
that.
caliper, and then the hub. This will slide straight onto the
cool.
Brumby spline there. Slide straight on using the Brumby wheel bearings, and we'll be able to put the EJ rotor straight onto that.
Oh, the brake rotor fits that
The brake
as well.
rotor actually fits that.
So why is that so exciting? Well, the Brumby comes with a 4x
4x140 on the Brumby?
Or 140.
Yes.
Yeah, so
which is
it's
very unusual.
Super unusual. So you can get wheels from, but your wheel choice is a bit limited. So why would you do this? Well, the answer is 5x100 wheels. They're just everywhere for Subarus. Forester wheels, Liberty, Impreza.
Some Volkswagens.
Volkswagens, all the aftermarket stuff. It opens up a whole lot of wheel options. You're also getting disc brake conversion. And for the front, what do we do for the front?
For the front, we do a modification to the control arm.
Yep.
And that allows us to fit the entire Forester front knuckle, brake assembly, and everything to that.
And so the shock absorber, as long as we adapt the top to go to the Brumby 2 rather than the 3 that you get on the Forester?
That's exactly right. So we can modify the strut.
Yeah.
It'll be the EJ strut, which will also give us camber adjustment, which any Brumby owner will know we can't adjust our camber. Of
course.
And it's horrid from factory.
So for our car, we'll probably go like a custom-built coilover, so we have even more adjustment and we can tweak everything. But this also brings me to the lift kit. So we're going to do a 5-stud conversion, a disc brake conversion. We're going to move the handbrake from the front to the back, but we're also going to do a lift.
Yes.
So this is your lift kit. Can you tell me a bit about how this works?
So it's a 2-inch body lift kit.
Yep. And what's a body lift compared to a lift?
So a body lift kit effectively lifts the body off the running gear.
Yes.
So we do that because of our CV joints on the front and back.
Yep.
If you don't do that, the angle of the CVs is too much.
Yeah.
We just chew through joints. We already chew through joints as it is.
Yep.
If we don't do that.
A body lift allows you usually to run bigger wheels, which also then sort of gives you a bit more clearance, which is why people do it. I think my truck is
and increases our approach and departure angle if you're building an off-roader.
Yep.
It's a great upgrade for a lot of people.
And so this means basically we've got to lift the subframes and the body away from each other. Is that what the blocks do? Because that actually looks a lot like, I don't know if you guys remember, but when we did our Outback and Outfap and a few other cars, factory they look like this.
Yes. Yeah,
factory. Not as big.
Yeah, factory that looks like those. So basically we're putting blocks between the running gear, spaces between the suspension, front and back, and extended bolts and hardware that's required.
We've got a heap of awesome Brumby parts. Now it's time to put them in.
Exciting package has just arrived. So Chris from Shockworks, who are down in Melbourne, has, very last minute for me, created some custom coilovers for us for our Brumby. And this is super cool because on the bottom you have Forester spec, which fits our hubs, and on the top you've got Brumby, but he's also created a shock, like an inverted monotube thing, like a good one, that incorporates the lift. So we don't have to use the plates, which is kind of cool, just as in terms of like making it really nice and neat. And that will go into the front of our Brumby and hopefully be perfect.
I always like to try and install new suspension in cars that are this old and with this many kilometres on them. The difference a new set of shocks makes is just massive. It rides better, handles better, it's safer, and in this case, we can tweak the height of the suspension to get it sitting just right.
Brumby is in the air. We're going to start with the rear end. We're basically going to pull all the old Brumby stuff apart, work out how much Forester stuff we can jam in there, and then we will have an excellent 5-stud converted Brumby. this is freaking awesome, man.
Yeah, cheers. It's a good bit of kit.
I feel like there's a lot of time that goes into this, and we often talk about this, that someone else's time is what you pay for with the R&D.
Yeah, that's
Because if I
exactly
was going
right.
to try and do this myself, 3 months later I might have a thing, but you've done it.
Yep. It had to be very particular about spacing everywhere to make this hub-centric for the rotor and hub-centric for the rim when the rim goes on as well.
So the benefit of this obviously is that we can use a Forester disc, we can use a Forester caliper, we can use all Forester stuff and Subaru stuff, which means when you want to buy brakes, you can just go and buy a Forester
Exactly
gear.
right, a lot more available.
Yep, and get obviously better braking as well. So this is our 5-star conversion done on the back. A few more bits and pieces to do on here with the brake line, which also is part of Dave's kit, and then we're going to move on to the front.
Once our mock-up with the old parts is complete, we're going to be fully reconditioning our Forester parts and using all new rotors and pads.
Our 5-stud conversion in the rear is done. We're actually going to do the rear lift kit first. That's the body lift. So the way that works is we unbolt a bunch of these brackets, those brackets, brackets there, brackets there, brackets there, and then we put the spacers in that Dave's made. So we're going to whiz them off and install the whole thing.
All the original bolts have been in there for over 30 years, so a bit of WD-40 helps loosen things up. The kit comes with all new bolts, and when you're doing a lift, it's important to check the grade of the bolts to make sure they're equal to or better than what you're taking out. This lift kit mirrors the way Subaru lifted the Outback version of their Liberty wagon, using one-piece blocks and extended bolts to suit. We then also need to extend or replace the rear shocks to make sure all the suspension works correctly.
So thanks to Dave's expertise, the lift kit, which is freaking awesome, is in. And we now got a 2-inch lift in the back. So tomorrow morning, first thing, we're going to do our 2-inch lift in the front. Then we've got another special guest coming to help us get the engine and box and everything in. Our reconditioned gearbox is going to be back tomorrow morning as well. So we have heaps still to do. I'm getting very, very excited about this Brumby adventure. It's all coming together.
It's a brand new day. It's a whole new world. Do you sing?
No.
Okay, good. I shouldn't either. What are we doing, Aaron? What's happening in here? There's nothing in there, and we got to get something in there. Tell me what's going to go down.
So I think the plan for today is get the engine and transmission into this thing, which should be fun.
Yep.
I haven't actually worked on one of these before, so it's going to be interesting.
The gearbox is not actually here yet, but it will be here later today. Let's put a Forester engine in a Brumby. Start the music.
So our first Subaru genuine part is going into the Brumby. I've got ball joints that are from the Forester. Use the Forester VINs, get myself the right parts. Some stuff you can't get genuine anymore because this stuff is so old, so they don't keep it in stock. But where possible, we are going to use genuine stuff, particularly when we're rebuilding the engine. The gearbox has been rebuilt with genuine parts as well. And so anything like this that we can put in, we're going to use brand new stuff. the moment of truth. Just like the factory, it's loaded in from underneath, although they never loaded this motor in. So we've updated. So we're gonna lift the hoist up. And the engine's coming with it, and the box is coming with it. Nothing's falling out. It's a good day. That's awesome. EJ powered Brumby, look at that. It's in. Now I've got to make a gearbox cross member and heaps of other stuff from scratch, but we couldn't do that until it was mounted. So now it's mounted. So thanks to Dave's awesome lift kit that he's put heaps of time and effort into designing for the Brumby, the engine fits perfectly, just buys us a bit more space. At the back though, we do have to make a cross member and adapt the original mount to fit onto the Brumby cross member. There's a few different ways to do this, but the easiest way is just to make a plate and reinforce it in through there. There's actually not a lot of weight on this, like I can lift it by hand. The engine mounts plus this mount sort of take the majority of the weight. It's actually quite a light engine as well, being a single overhead cam. So I'm gonna make this up, weld it to the Brumby thing, clean and paint all that up, and it should look excellent.
These old cars like the Forester or the Brumby itself can just end up in the bin, but it doesn't need to. Collective Spirit can bring projects like this back to life, and it's going to need a community of car enthusiasts from across the country to help heal the wounds of this old car. We're going to have to make a lot of stuff from scratch, but using some basic tools, we should be able to make it work. This project is going to take months. There are some extraordinary talented people out there who can knock this sort of thing out in days or weeks, but it's also not uncommon for a project to also take years to get drivable. The reality is you can get caught out with broken parts, run out of funds, life gets in the way, or you just lose motivation. Getting some mates involved helps keep you motivated to get to those special moments that make it worth it, like tightening the final bolt, the first start, or the first drive.
The front end of our 5-star conversion is now pretty much done. So we don't have drive shafts, but what we do have is a deconstructed one that Aaron pulled apart just so we can bolt it in. The idea is to get the wheels on, check our heights, make sure our coilovers are all good, make sure everything's sitting in the right place, and make it look like a finished car because it's easy enough to get some drive shafts spun up. So this is going to go in the back of the hub. We're waiting on our wheels. So we've got some tyres, some BF Goodrich tyres, and now waiting on our wheels, waiting for them to get fitted. As soon as they arrive, I'm going to slap the wheels on and see what it looks like. So our BF Goodrich KO2s have arrived. We have no idea if these are actually going to fit. This is full guessing game. We have completely changed our driveline, changed our stud pattern, changed everything. They might be too big. I'm just going to say that right now. But either way, we're putting them on and getting a photo of it because I think it's going to look amazing. If we have to go over to road tyres, no big deal. We'll grab some good ones. Here we go. Heavy boy. Oh, shit, that looks tough. It's going to disappoint a lot of people. Potentially the two guys have been helping all day. But these look so sick, but I think they're going to be too big. I still want to see them on there because I want to see this thing like full lift spec. And you could still drive it like that if you really wanted to, as long as you never turn the steering wheel, but the back's going to be all right. Is it hitting the guards? No. Oh, it looks so tough. Look at the height of it. Full jacked up. Needs more height in the front. It's ridiculous. We're probably going to have to go like basically 1 inch smaller. And they might not be as chunky, but we wanted to see it with chunky tyres, which we have, and it looks amazing. If you've ever wondered how to lower your Brumby, you just need a Dave. You get him from Perth. It's on the other side of Australia, for anyone who's wondering. A 19mm ratchet, and then watch this. Torsion bars, people. 1 bolt to adjust it, and bang, you lower your Brumby. Isn't that cool?
So unfortunately the Muddies don't fit. They do look hectic,
Looks so good.
But being such a classic car, I think we just need a mad classic road tyre, something with a little bit of chunk, something with some sidewall. That is something that we're going to have to work out. It's a whole new day here in Sydney. It's raining and it's cold, and the Brumby experts are multiplying. Hey Scott, how you doing?
Good, mate.
Scott has driven up from Victoria, west of Ballarat, in his absolute nugget of a Brumby. 2 notable points about this car so far. Number 1, it's got a chop sticker on it, which is freaking awesome. It looks like that's seen some bug. And Targa Top. Can you tell me a little bit about your car?
Yeah, it's a factory Targa Top, 1990 model. These things can pop out, so sometimes you cruise around with them pop it open, or with a little bit of work, they can come out completely.
Oh, that's cool.
For summer drives.
Are these leaky? I get the sense that like just targa and water is not a great mix.
Sometimes they leak through these.
Yep.
And mine has a random one. It happens sometimes, and other days it doesn't happen at all.
Yep.
Nothing major, just a drop or two.
Yep.
Worst I've had is one seat was partly wet.
Yeah, okay.
It was the passenger seat, so I didn't care too much.
Why do you love Brumbies?
They're just a little iconic ute. I love the look of them. The shape's unreal. They're like every other Subaru, like Lego.
Yep.
So I've got parts out of a touring wagon in this. I've got a coupe dashboard in it, touring wagon console, and yeah, just put it all together, plug it in, and
That's
off you go.
awesome, man. Well, do you want to come and have a look at ours? So
Yeah.
I know you've only just arrived. This is where we're up to so far. So Forester engine is placed in there. Marty got these wheels and tyres. They were too big, so those are not going on. We're trying to find some solutions to that at the moment. But what do you think of the colour?
It's growing on me.
Yeah.
I initially, from photos that I saw earlier from Dave, I was like, but in the flesh,
Yeah.
looks awesome.
It looks good, hey?
I think it's going to be better once all the trims are on it, and it's
Cars always look a bit weird and nude when they don't have all of their bits on them, and once it's together, I think it's going to look great. So our job today, we're going to be on the inside. So whole dash is coming out.
Whole dash.
I'm going to be your apprentice. I got lots of little baggies.
Cool.
I mean, not the Sydney baggies, the sandwich baggies. So I'll try and mark everything, where everything goes, so that when it goes back in, because I gather you'll be long gone into the sunset in your Brumby, and then I'll try and put it back together. Is there anything that I need to know or that is important about getting this dash in and out that's specific to Brumby?
No, it's kind of like any other Subaru dashboard. The bolt locations are roughly the same.
Yep.
The only thing is on this one, it's easy to do with the windscreen out.
Okay.
Because the bolts along the windscreen are vertical, whereas every other Subaru from then on, they're angled back at you, so you can just get in really easy. So we're going to have to be careful on that because you can chip the windscreen from the inside.
Right.
So that's going to be a big trick. And when you put it back in, that's what you have to be really careful of.
Cool.
Yeah,
Well,
that's the main
it is a
thing.
new windscreen as well.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
cool. All right. Thanks for coming up.
Too easy.
Let's
Pleasure.
get to it.
As we get deeper into this build, we're starting to see just how special these cars are to the people that own them, as our inbox and comment section is filling up with people going crazy for this Brumby. Heaps of them were sold in Australia over a long period of time, and while plenty have no doubt disappeared into the sands of time, there's still heaps of them that are being daily driven, lots that are being used on working farms, and some that are being restored in sheds. The owners that we've met are super passionate about their quirky little pickup truck, and the guys that are helping us are no exception. And with their help, nearly every single nut and bolt on this car is going to be worked on, repaired, or replaced.
So in the little ashtray here, I found yet another Subaru key. Like there's just there's so many keys in there, it's not funny, but look how used that key is. So this is kind of what an old but not too used key looks like compared to that. It's had some life, man, driving goats around.
The Brumby and the Forester have a few similarities even though they are a decade apart in age, and one of those is the diff. Lots of Subarus use an R160, and luckily for us, we're going to be able to use the guts of the Forester diff in the Brumby housing, which will give us the correct diff ratio and allow our all-wheel drive system to function correctly. If you don't do this, the front and rear wheels will spin at different speeds, which turns your gearbox and your centre diff into a yard sale.
So we have just measured up for our custom tail shaft, which matches the Forester gearbox into this diff. It's the right length. Now we're going to pull the Brumby diff out and we're going to do some swap skids between the Forester and the Brumby so we can keep our Brumby rear end more or less the same. We've also ordered some new drive shafts because the boots are really old and crusty on this, been sitting around for a long time. So do our diff swap, we'll be in business.
The diff comes out by removing the pins that go through the axles, then removing the mounts and lowering it down. I'm going to crack the fill and drain plugs while it's still in the car so I have more leverage. The Forester ones were a bit seized and required fire and penetrant to get out. Once it's out, I'm then going to set it up next to the Forester diff on a clean bench space so I can start swapping the internal bits over.
What we're trying to do here is a bit of diff trickery. What we need is these stubs on our Forester diff, because the Forester diff ratio matches the gearbox, and on Subarus that's really important. So what we've done is pulled the centre out of the Forester one. We're also going to replace, while we're here, some new Subaru genuine seals, and also the O-ring that goes across there. And all we got to do is basically install these stubs into that centre. Looks easy, very messy and very gross.
The Brumby diff has stubs that the CV shafts slide onto, which we need to retain when we swap in the Forester parts. They have sneaky E10 bolts that hold them in place, and if you snap one of them, you're in huge trouble. The aim here is to remove the crown wheel and swap it, as it determines the overall ratio of the diff.
So that part is what we're trying to rescue out of the diff, so we can screw those funny looking E10 Torx things that we found in the back of it, which are here somewhere, to then hold the stubs. I'm learning about diffs. Here we go. So to hold them in with that bolt, that's the other end of it, and that goes sort of in the spider gears, and then we can put all that in the Forester. Don't try this at home. I mean, do try it at home if you want.
The diff is back together and ready to go into the car. Next, I'm going to head out to visit a friend to get custom drive shafts made up that is going to make this whole thing work. Making CV shafts from scratch requires some specialised equipment, and it can be hard to find people with the necessary skills. In our case, we have to make custom axles to suit the track width of the Brumby, which is narrower than the Forester that the rest of the driveline came from.
This is my mate Lawrence. You might remember him from our BMW E30 LS3 conversion, which had a fully custom rear end out of an S15, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. S15 diff.
So, to make that work, we needed custom axles. Now, it just so happens with our Brumby, we also need custom axles. Why? Because the Brumby axles do not fit all the Forester parts, and the Forester axles are too long. So what do you do? Lawrence, what do you do? We're at your mate's machine shop, engineering shop, and he happens to be a bit of a boss with this sort of stuff, but you have done a lot of this.
Yeah, so the axles that we're making obviously are to handle V8s in smaller cars,
Yep.
and adapt a good diff centre into a BMW that they don't normally have, more ratio options and all those sorts of things. The other thing is we can make a length of axle we want. We can put a spline at each end of whatever we want. And in your case, I think all you're trying to achieve is a different axle length. You're not going for strength or brute power in this, but you're always getting better material and heat treating process anyway. So this is the axle, I believe, that you want to be able to fit into the vehicle.
Yeah, because my understanding is the Brumby has a slightly smaller track width. So
Okay.
the Forester's a bit wider, so therefore the CVs are longer, or the axles are longer.
Right.
So we essentially need to shorten it, but I don't think it's just a matter of chopping these up, because these are hardened, is that right?
Yeah, they're a hardened steel from factory of some sort, and cutting them and joining them just doesn't work.
Yeah.
It might work on the farm for a little buggy or something, but for
Yes.
a road car, it's just not going to work. So the simple answer is we disassemble the CVs at each end of this, and you've started to do this one here, so these will slide apart. And then we clean all this up. And what we're essentially trying to do is just replicate this axle, replicate these splines, but make it shorter to the length you want.
Awesome. So I took a measurement on the Brumby itself with the suspension droop and with it at sort of neutral.
Yep.
And I also brought a Brumby shaft, because I think that hopefully is enough data to at least get a good idea of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, so we're just comparing the overall length installed on the setup that you want to be able to put in,
Yep.
and we'll apply that shortening amount to here. So we'll finish pulling these apart and cleaning them up, and we'll measure circlip to circlip, which will be, like on this axle, we'll be making something like this. Once we have that measurement worked out, we hand that over to our mate here and he'll make something for you.
Awesome.
So the way that we measure it is, this is the wheel side, so we put that into the wheel hub and just install it as it would be.
Yeah, which is now a Forester hub, used to be a Brumby one.
Yep, so once this is disassembled, we get this cup and we install that back onto the diff.
Yep.
Inside here, we'll have a little CV knuckle that slides in and out, so we'd sit that roughly where we want it. This is sitting roughly in the middle of its float, in and out.
Yep.
And then we measure from the back side of that spline to the back side of the spline of this piece in here.
Cool.
And that's our axle length, circlip to circlip.
Cool.
So that's what we have to try and guesstimate. Because obviously once we make them and cut the splines, we have to try it, and if it's wrong, then
You got to go.
know what
again.
has to happen.
Waste of time, yeah. So So if this was a meme, it'd have all the mats like sprinkling down behind my head while we do all the science. It's a little bit crude how we're measuring it, just because the car is in one place. We don't actually have a shaft to check it off. We've only got all this sort of stuff. But by pulling it apart, we have worked out that we've got to reduce this by roughly 85 to 95 mil. It's not a lot, actually. It's only like a reasonably small amount, but that should get us set up for the correct track. It's worth mentioning that I think there are people out there that have done this before, but because they're using different combinations of gearboxes and different combinations of parts, it's not always the same. So it does pay for us to measure, but I have heard the number is 85. So that tells me I think we're in the right ballpark. And we'll be able to make one and test it, and if it's wrong, I just pay again.
Once we're happy with our measurements, it's time for the blank to be set up in the machine and the spline cut. It's a slow and careful process that slowly rotates the axle while the cutting die cuts the appropriate number of splines to match the rest of our CV hardware. While they're being finished and heat treated for strength, Aaron is coming back to lend us some more of his Subaru wisdom, getting our engine stripped right down ready for reconditioning.
A lot of people often talk about EJs being fragile, but in my experience, that's people who've got a stock EJ20 turbo that's 25 years old and then double the boost and wonder why it lets go.
Yeah,
in my experience, that's when people say they're unreliable. So I have, in my personal experience with the 2-litre ones, they seem to go forever. So this has only got, well, not even 200,000 Ks on it, but you've done ones with double that, right?
Yeah, I've done plenty with double that. My personal car, it's got 450,000 Ks on the original engine. So, I mean, as long as they're serviced regularly, mate, you'll have them forever.
So we're going to strip this down. I mean, even like heads off, right?
Yeah, heads off.
Heads off, so we'll be able to inspect everything. So Aaron's going to work his magic. I'm going to apprentice, and we're just going to strip this down completely to its undies.
The engine from our Forester was in great condition, and it could probably have just gone straight into the Brumby and lived on for many years. But while we have it out, we're going to give it a once-over with a head service, plus we'll replace every gasket and seal we can get to. The cylinder head reconditioning process involves removing the cams, rockers, valves, and anything not made of metal so that they can be chemically cleaned. The valves are then cleaned, stripped, and ground. The heads are also cleaned up, then set up to be machined, skimming a small layer of material off them so that they sit perfectly flat on the head gasket when they're mated back to the engine block.
While the heads are being finished off, I'm going to head out and get a custom-made tail shaft made to join our Forester gearbox to our Brumby diff. When you're changing drivelines like we are, you can sometimes get lucky and mix and match factory components so you won't have to go custom. But if you can't get those bits or you're changing widths or lengths, you might have to get one made. Tail shafts do wear out. They can get damaged or overpowered and twisted or snapped. The guys at Propeller Shaft Services have been making replacement and upgrade ones for decades.
So we're about midway through the process of our awesome new tail shaft. So Justin, what happens after this? This is a unis going in, is that correct?
Yep, that's correct. We're fitting the unis, setting all the preloads, double checking the lengths and everything are okay.
Yep.
And then we'll head to the welder.
So these unis look a bit different to the ones on our factory shaft. They can be replaced?
Yep, completely serviceable, completely replaceable. It's in the standard universal joint as well, so even in the future if you decide to change your diff or your gearbox, most parts are available in this universal size.
Oh cool, so you can just unclip them and just go again basically?
Yep. If you say in the future you decide to put a C4 in it, it comes in that universal joint.
Yeah.
Pull the old slip yoke off and put the new one on.
Put an EZ30 in it. Anyway, don't worry about it. So the process after this, what happens next?
Next from here, we'll double check the length, double check all the preloads, go on the welder, straighten it, weld it, then the last process balance and paint.
Done.
That's it.
Awesome, man.
The size and materials that the shaft is made out of is worked out once we calculate the maximum RPM that will be spinning the engine. High RPM is more likely to break a drive shaft than torque alone. The universal joints and metal pipe will be welded together, and that's the easier part of the job as it's the balancing that is crucial to a long-lasting and vibration-free tail shaft. The shaft is set up for welding, an initial check of the roundness completed, and then the uni joints can be welded on, and once that's done, it's time for balancing.
So Justin, balancing, this is sort of like the art in what we're doing today. So what do we do now in this part of the process?
Now the shaft's bolted up, ready, secure, we know it's all good to go.
Yep.
We'll run a dial indicator on the tube, make sure it's all nice and straight.
Yep.
If it's not, we'll heat shrink it, get it all good. And then the last step is adding and removing weight.
And you don't mean heat shrink like rubber heat shrink, you mean actually shrink the metal with heat, right?
Use oxyacetylene, heat up the high spot and cool it down with a bit of water.
Awesome. And so why is this so important?
If it's not straight, first of all, it'll vibrate.
Yeah.
If you don't feel the vibration, you'll wear out the bushes, the seals much faster. You'll wear out the diff seals much quicker.
Yep.
It's not always that you don't feel it, but if it's not running true or it's vibrating, it will cause... Longevity is the biggest thing.
When I called you, we spoke a lot about RPM.
Yep.
Why is that?
In this day and age, all the components and everything that's available now is more than capable of handling the
like
horsepower.
All the unis and everything.
Yeah, it's more than strong enough. There's chromoly components now. It can handle all the power. Purely nowadays, it's RPM. The gearboxes, the motor, they're all revving 9,000 RPM.
Yeah.
And where do they break? Dead in the center, it shears like a biscuit.
Really?
It just turns to wet spaghetti.
Really?
Yeah.
So the RPM question determines what you make it of, how thick it is.
Yep. So RPM, if it's very long, like XYs, and if you're doing high revs, we'll break it up into 2 sections.
Okay.
Put a center bearing.
Yep.
If it's within the rev range, then we'll make it at a 3.5-inch tube.
Got it.
That's what determines if we go 2-piece or stick to single.
So we spin this up, balance it, make sure it's happy. You change it if you need to.
Yep.
And then we're
paint it. And you're ready to stick it in the car.
Let's go.
Alright.
To make sure the shaft is perfectly straight and balanced, a dial gauge is used to check for any high or low spots. Justin heats up and then quickly cools the metal to change its shape. It's a process he repeats over and over and then uses the balancing machine to indicate where any issues might be. Once he's got it in the ballpark, he'll then remove material off the end of the shaft to remove weight or add weights which he'll then weld on. It's a process that fine-tunes the balance of the shaft to make sure when our EJ20 is spinning it, it's straight and true. It then gets a quick hit with some sandpaper to clean off any scale and dirt, then it's into the paint booth and we're all done.
Absolutely massive. This is, like I said at the very start, one of the biggest projects that we've ever attempted, and it would not be possible without all of these friends and experts helping us, so thank you very much.
Exactly, and such a different spread of skills there. You've got engine machining, you've got making drive shafts from scratch, making tail shafts from scratch, so many different skill sets coming into it, and I really appreciate everyone that helped us out. And also, it's just all those little things that are going to make this Brumby extra, extra special.
Welcome to another episode of this epic Subaru Brumby build. It's a restoration. We found it in a barn. It's full of rats, and now we've exploded the whole car out onto these tables. And we're going to show you, we're going to walk through what we've got here. I don't know what half of it is, to be honest.
Yeah.
But Martin does.
I hope I can work it out. But a lot of our stuff has been painted, which is cool. So these are all the trims that we've got painted. So that's actually the same color as the Subaru Levorg, which is an awesome little shout out to the Levorg. And then everything else is in a satin. So our little theme there is obviously the awesome green, and then we've got a satin black, and then anything that used to be chrome is now Levorg black, which I think is going to look just excellent.
You can see the difference here highlighted, which is awesome. So you get a little shiny, a little gloss, and then a little satin there, which is awesome.
That's the fun stuff. Sticking that on is a really exciting and sort of easy bit. This is where it gets a bit more complicated because we've got to make our interior work. We also have to make it work with the Forester gearbox, so that's all different as well. Then we've got a custom-made drive shaft, which you guys would have seen by now as well, where we've got all that balanced up. That needs to go in, our gearbox needs to go in, and we've got our interior to do like seat rails. We've got to get our clutch and brakes working. And on the floor is everything else, which is actually the details. And as you can see, you discovered some issues with our insides.
Now, when I was pulling the dash out, I actually, maybe this seems a bit pedantic, but I'm not super familiar with these cars. So I actually wrote on all these things, this dash screen vent left-hand side, that way goes up. So I actually know. If you are a Subaru Brumby legend, you would just be able to look at all this stuff and know what it is. But Marty was saying before, his kind of experience with Subarus is a generation newer than this.
Yeah.
And my experience with Subarus is like
the next one again.
The next one after that again. So that's all of that stuff. Moving on over here, we've got, look at this. Look at these interior pieces, Martin. Absolutely beautiful, mate.
Good.
Absolutely beautiful.
So
look at that,
good.
brand new.
So our friend Carlos trimmed these for us, which just look absolutely epic, and he actually matched what our seats are going to look like. So we gave him a sample of the seats, which are also over there on a pallet, which is very cool. They've been sent up. They're brand new BRZ seats. The other things that we have here, which you probably noticed, is a whole lot of Subaru genuine parts. Now, being that this is a Subaru Brumby and Subaru is involved, I said, hey, I would love to get all the parts in genuine Subaru. They said, great, and they sent them. There's everything here. We're talking brake pads, head gaskets, a clutch, a brand new clutch, and every other part we could think of that we might need. So thermostat housing, which is good because I actually used our old one on another car. That's a whole other story.
Clutch
and yeah, boots, even down to little details like brake and clutch pedals. So thanks Subaru for hooking us up with that. That's very, very exciting. I've also got some bits to do our fuel system. So there's a heap to do. Any restoration of this level is going to be kind of this much work, and people take years to do this. We've only got a couple of weeks to get this done in its entirety. So we're going to have a good day or two crack at it, try and get as much of this into the car as we can. And of course,
special guests.
We do have special guests
who are just over here who are going to be helping us out. This engine that we've taken out of the Forester is getting a full birthday.
It is.
So I'm going to be working with Aaron from Subaru. We're going to be putting that back together. Meanwhile, look at the boys. They're just ready to go. Look at them. They're just so stoked to be here. They've come from all over Australia. 2 minutes away, and
Melbourne. This is
Melbourne,
Scott was here. You might have seen him in a previous episode. He was helping out Dave, our other friend from Perth. He also knows where stuff is. The kind of person where I go, hey Scott, where does this go on a Brumby? And he goes, lower left-hand passenger side.
And his name's Scott, but we call him Benny. Try and work that out. I don't know. Anyway, let's begin.
Although we have tried our hands at bringing some old cars back to life again, this is a whole other level. We've cleaned Subaru out of as many new parts as we could, mostly Forester bits, but they also managed to find a few Brumby parts in the warehouse too. Anything we can't get new, we'll be refurbishing.
Quite a bit of this stuff has actually survived pretty well considering its age. That's the diff mount as well. But there's some surface rust and corrosion on there. It's an easy one just to blast and clean up. We can even put a new bush in it if it needs it. So I'm going to throw it in the sandblaster. I'm going to give everything a bit of a hit, including our bash plate, and we'll get it either painted or powder coated.
Restoration by definition means returning something to its earlier good condition, and there's some areas where we'll apply even more durable finishes than what the car came with from the factory, like powder coating the bull bar or brake calipers. But our main aim is to recoat the parts to prevent rust, so some blasting, cleaning, priming and painting will get the job done. There's still some farm dirt on the underside of the chassis, which we'll remove once the car's mobile again. We've made a list of jobs to complete that just seems to keep growing, but now that the dash is out, I'm going to give the interior a proper once-over, which includes removing another rat's nest that was hiding inside the heater box. While we sort that out, Marty and our two first named friend Scott Benny is going to figure out how to make the gearbox work with the Brumby clutch pedal.
All right, so Scott has a couple of Brumbies, and by a couple I mean, is it 7?
Yeah.
It's multiple. But the good thing is he knows where everything goes on these cars. I can go, what's this bolt for? He goes, oh, that's the back tailgate, right, driver's side, whatever, which is freaking amazing. What he's also done is he's got a recipe to make it so we can use a cable clutch, which is the Brumby, on a gearbox that used to be hydraulic. But to save having to weld in everything into the inside of the car to convert it to hydraulic, we can actually use cable.
Correct.
So what's the recipe?
So this is a Brumby brake pedal and clutch pedal assembly with the EA clutch cable.
And by EA, that's an EA 81, which is the old
school engine. And this is a Liberty clutch cable from a Gen 1, Gen 2, and it should just slot straight on. So
and slightly
longer in the
It's almost exactly the same, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, but we also have a bracket that we have to put onto the gearbox and a different.
And we have to have the matching cable clutch fork.
The fork, okay.
Yes.
Cool.
That's all you need.
So a cable clutch conversion. A lot of people go hydro. We're going cable, but it means we don't have to hack up our Brumby. I think there might be some way you can weld in a pedal box if you're we've seen it done and it's not pretty. So this is a much cleaner and neater way to do the same thing.
This is a much better way.
So all we need is an engine to put in, so we can put the gearbox in, so we can put our clutch cable in. So we're waiting for an engine to arrive so we can mock it up.
The Brumby was still selling so well into the 90s that Subaru kept producing them while they'd moved on to RS turbos and the first WRXs. That crossover is actually helping us, as there are some parts like this clutch cable available that save us having to re-engineer a whole system.
So the clutch cable that Scott managed to get to work in this car is a genuine Subaru part. Also, so are these. Screw grommets. Look at this. 30 years old, brand new. Love it. Love new parts on a car like this. How good is it? You can still get these, which is pretty wild. And then we've got our trims that we've been painted up. We sent it off to the paint shop and they've come back. So we can actually start to put these trims back onto the Brumby and it's gonna look freaking excellent. We're waiting for our engine, which should be here any minute so we can mock up. We need to put the gearbox in so we can do our shifter. So once we do the shifter, we can do the console. Once we do the console, we can do the dash. Then we can do the wiring. It all has to happen in a certain order, but we are making really good progress. Another day of Brumby, people. The rear is pretty much done and it's starting to look like a car. I'm loving the theme of our satin, our Subaru Levorg black, and all this different sort of trim we've got going on here. We're gonna move on to the front. We had some hold-ups with engine parts because there was just stuff missing and our heads took longer than we thought. So we have to hit pause on the engine. So what we're gonna do is move our focus to the outside of the car again and also the interior. We're gonna do wiring as much inside as we can and the front end.
Once we get the front of the car looking good again, we're going to install the original bull bar, which we've had powder-coated satin black. Once it's on, we can move on to fitting our power steering rack that we got from an MY wagon and that we've had reconditioned. While we get that sorted, Aaron is going to do the final assembly of the reconditioned engine parts and get it back into the car.
Quiet, I was sleeping when I heard my name from under the stairs. I was lonely, it was calling, I was lost and I was underprepared. And how are we supposed to find the right way home? How do you run when you've run out of time? Everything that we could be is finally found. So it seems there's no need to worry if we're too high on the ground. So it seems don't be afraid of being broken. I can't fix you. So it seems.
So we had another late one. Aaron stayed back and helped us get the engine together. It looks so freaking good. There's nothing like a fresh EJ to go into our Brumby. So next up, we have to connect this up to our gearbox. We've got a few more parts to put on. We're going to do rear main seal and a few other small bits and pieces, and then it will be going into the Brumby for the last time.
You may be asking, why didn't we just stuff the most enormously powerful engine Subaru make into the nose of this Brumby? Well, there's a few reasons. Massive amounts of power doesn't always equate to a better car. The chassis and driveline also has to be able to use it. Secondly, the single overhead cam Subaru engines just fit better in the Brumby chassis. It means you can use factory mounts, which means smoother operation, less noise and harshness. It also makes it much easier to get through inspections if you've only increased your engine capacity a small amount. The EJ20 is also a pretty straightforward power bump from the old EA81, which is hard to get parts for these days. The factory fuel injection setup means good fuel economy and smooth power. You can turbo these cars, and many people have, but those setups don't drop directly in as easily as this, and even this is a lot of work.
I call your name, but you're not listening. City skies going dim. There's so much noise, but I'm still whispering. Do you still?
The aim of the game now is to get our freshened up engine mated to our gearbox, a brand new clutch installed, and then get the engine and gearbox sitting in the car so we can begin the slow process of wiring it and plumbing it, along with 100 other jobs that we've only got a few short weeks to complete. The next morning, the Brumby is off to Castle Hill Exhaust to get Chris to make us a nice new stainless steel exhaust from the headers back. And it's always so amazing when we see our stickers on other mad cars out in the wild. So much of a car's character and soul comes from the exhaust system and how it sounds, something that many modern cars fail to realise. It's most definitely a part of any build process that shouldn't be rushed or skimped on, and a custom system like this is the ultimate in personifying your build.
Come down to Castle Hill Exhaust. Chris is here. We've got our headers. These are the Forester headers. We're going to use as much of the Forester exhaust as we can. That's for emissions, it's for engineering. And we're also going to use it because it's here and it's going to work just perfectly. So the Cat, as it is, won't fit, so we might have to mess with that. But now we're just going to put that onto the car and see if that fits, and then from there, build out the rest of the exhaust.
One of my favourite things about working on cars is getting to meet people who have spent their life perfecting their skills. Myself, as a backyarder at heart with no formal training, my eyes and ears are always open when I'm in these environments to pick up tips and tricks to make my own work better. Whether it's a setting on a welder, a particular material, bolt or tool, if you pay attention you can learn plenty. On this particular exhaust we're using the factory headers to keep the ECU happy, installing a new catalytic converter of the same specification as the original one, which after 20 years of use will have probably worn out. Then we're using stainless steel exhaust and mufflers from the front to the back.
So Chris from Castle Hill Exhaust has worked his magic. We've got our original headers, which clear everything. Then we've gone off here with a 90 into our CAT converter. He's also put the O2 sensor in there, so the ECU will be happy. Then we come off into a flex, which is super important. So as everything moves, the body and the engine move around on mounts. It's all going to take up the slack. Then we've got a resonator to keep some of the noise down. It would probably drone a bit without that. Then a straight shot, which is nice and neat onto here. Another mount. Then we've got this little tricky bit of piping up here and into our rear muffler with a nice little tip on the end. I think it looks absolutely excellent. We've done full stainless and then TIG welded through all those joins, and we MIG'd on here. I think it's looking absolutely perfect.
The engine is in and now the exhaust is on as well. It looks absolutely incredible. We can't shift gears yet, but that is something that is upcoming.
Exactly. So we've got to make the shifter work because the Brumby's a different length to the Forester. What else are we doing? We're draining the old fuel out because next we have to do a fuel system.
It smells like paint.
It's super old. That'll be 10-year-old fuel, right?
That's crazy. Do you actually do this for a job, or have you restored a car in your garage before?
Respect.
It is a massive, massive job. This is not like throwing a pod filter on and doing a flash tune. It is absolutely huge. So if you actually do this or your business does this, first of all, respect. Today we got a couple of experts coming down. We got the Brumby boys coming in from Western Australia
and Melbourne
and Victoria as well. They're going to be helping us out. It will be finished today. We're out of time. So we got to turn the key. We got to start. First job, Marty is going to be making the shifter work. That's so right. That actually works. There's a bunch of nerdy fuel stuff to do, a cooling system, and then I'm going to be helping put the interior back together, which is going to be a puzzle in itself.
Huge.
All the rat's nests are out now. So I reckon, Martin, we just kick right in.
We're just going to go into it. Let's go.
Dave and Scott had such a good time when we last had them over that they jumped at the chance to come back and help us finish this mad Brumby. It looks like Marty, though, has had a bit of a battle on his hands making the shifter work. The gearbox, tail shaft, shifter and exhaust are all fighting over a very small amount of real estate. So even though it currently does change gears, it looks like we'll have to start that area completely from scratch. Next up, we have to make the fuel system work. Originally, the Brumby was a carby car, and it had a pretty basic low-pressure pump to send fuel up to the engine to make mysterious old-school atomization magic happen. We're going to be utilising the hard lines on the car, but upgrading to a high-pressure EFI pump.
This is the CV shaft out of the Subaru Forester. We need to use it in our Brumby. Now, you might have seen, went to the engineering shop and got some made. That is too long for the Brumby. Why? Because the Forester's got a wider track than a Brumby. So what we've got made is this awesome looking thing, which is the shaft that goes between the two. So you can see from there it's just a little bit shorter, in our case about 85 millimetres shorter. That is the secret sauce to make a Forester gearbox fit a Brumby, but you also need to use the Forester hubs. If you're going to use Brumby hubs, this end has to be different, or one of the ends has to be different. But in our case, we're just essentially shortening a Forester shaft. So what I'm going to do is use all the hardware from the Forester shaft. I've also got brand new, genuine Subaru boots for both ends, and then new circlips to go on. This goes on there, and we rebuild it, and then we have a brand new Brumby shaft. So time to pack this CV joint. Make sure you get grease. That is for CV joints. It'll usually say on the back. It's one of those things where there's like 16 different versions of grease and you end up having to read each and every one, but there are different sort of compounds and stuff in there. Sometimes it's a moly grease, sometimes it's a rubber grease. You don't want to get it wrong, but if it says CV for something like this, you're all good. So you need a big scoop of it. Luckily it matches the paint on the outside, and that is how you do it. You have to make the noise. If you don't make the noise, you're not doing it right. Once it's all greased up, the metal bands can go on. Okay, moment of truth. I really hope this fits. Happily for us, the drive shafts slot straight into place. And now that they're in the gearbox, we can reinstall our front hubs, which means we can fit our freshly reconditioned brakes. We've had the calipers cleaned and powder coated, new seals put in, and thanks to our glorious pile of Subaru genuine parts, we have new clips, pads and rotors to go on as well.
things are progressing well. A little update for you. We've got our power steering in. Dave's now working on getting the power steering lines to work. He's actually used a hybrid of the Forester ones and then adapted it into the MY wagon rack, which fits a Brumby. Subaru things, people. It even blows my mind, and I've been doing this for a while. We've also got a little under jacking plate there as well, which means we can also fit our bash plate. The next big job for me now is to get the cooling system working. So Dave is working on wiring, Scott's working on finishing off driveline things, putting drive shafts in, stuff like that, and I'm going to try and get cooling working. And then, assuming that it does plug in and everything fires up, we'll have a running Brumby. Let's cross our fingers.
What's exciting about a build like this is how many talented, experienced people all play together like an automotive orchestra to help make this Brumby sing. Trying to do a job like this by yourself, while it would be possible, would be an absolutely huge undertaking that you could very easily spend a lifetime achieving. Meanwhile, we're trying to do the bulk of this conversion in just a couple of short weeks, and the whole restoration being completed in less than 6 months. And this is alongside creating all of the unique regular videos that come out every week on Mighty Car Mods. It simply would not be possible without our friends and experts coming along for the ride, and we are so stoked that they were so excited to be part of this build. The next step is to fill the car up with Castrol Edge, and then we'll be moving on to getting the radiator system set up in the car.
While Dave works his magic installing his custom-made wiring loom, I'm going to try and get a radiator into this thing. There's a little bit less room in the nose of a Brumby when you swap an EJ20 into it. I've chosen to use an aftermarket alloy radiator as it gives me flexibility to cut off and re-weld the inlet and outlet pipes. It's a tricky job that I've been putting off as it pushes my welding skills out of my comfort zone. I'm going to have to cut off and cover up the original lower pipe. I'm going to use leftover bits that I cut off as it's more likely to weld back to itself. Then I'll grab a new bend and place it in the right position to get the radiator hose onto it. I'll do a similar thing at the top, but once that's all done, I just have to cross my fingers that it doesn't leak. To check, I'm going to fill it with water first, run it, and then change to coolant once I know it's watertight. Now the radiator's in, we can finish off the front end.
Made some excellent progress. The radiator is mounted. The welds I did in there seem to have held up, which is pretty exciting on Ali. Dave is making our wiring look beautiful, putting positive and negative terminals in there ready for the battery. And we're getting really close to starting it, actually. So next up, we're going to put some fuel in it. Dave's going to make sure he's happy with all the wiring stuff, and we are going to try and see if it runs. Brumby is full of nice, fresh 98 petrol in this case. So next we are going to flush the fuel lines. So to do that, we're going to prime the fuel pump. So turn the key. As long as all Dave's wiring works properly, we should see fuel spit out up the front. We're going to flush the lines. We've replaced pretty much all the fuel lines anyway, but just to be sure there's nothing in them, we're going to flush them, both the feed and the return, and then we're going to try and start it. So our fuel system is looking good. A bit of dirty crap came out, so I'm glad that we cleared that out. We've now checked for leaks, no leaks. Now we're going to crank it, but because the engine has been rebuilt, we don't want it to actually run yet. So we're going to disconnect the ECU, so there's no fuel and no spark, and now we're going to crank it, listen for bad noises and stuff falling out of it. Like an unhappy starter motor. Cooked starter motor, eh, is what that is.
That sounds like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which way is...
Cooked starter motor. Cool. Time for first start. Everything's done, fuel system's flushed, everything's powered up. I think it's time.
It looks amazing.
It looks so
Like
good.
the whole car's it looks like it should start.
That always helps. All right. Let's do it. You ready, Dave? Yep. Do it, man.
I hear fuel pump. Well done.
Like a stock one.
Well done, boys. That's freaking awesome. Well done.
Brumby, everybody. EJ20 powered Brumby. Listen to it. Give it a little rev, Dave.
That's
So
unreal.
Good. So good. Now let's finish everything else.
There's so much still.
There's so much to do.
So much still to go.
Let's go. Feeling keen. Righto, kill it.
Yeah, maybe a kebab, then we'll hook into it. This is a huge milestone. It's been hundreds of hours of work so far, and while it still has a bit of orchard dirt in places and it's not yet perfect, it feels like we've come a long way. This means installing our freshly recovered dash, which we've had to send interstate to be restored to as new, and then fit all the interior pipes, hoses and cables that make the fan and heater work correctly. The last 10% of finishing a project car like this has a habit of sucking in just as much time as the big jobs, like getting an engine in, and we want it to look as good as possible. Marty's still got a few parts to clean up and reinstall, and our diff is getting some fresh fluid so it's ready to drive. We've asked our friend Miles from Flux 3D for some help making a custom centre console. Hey Miles, how you doing?
Good, man.
Welcome to the internet.
Oh, thank you. I've been here before.
Not really welcome. You've probably seen Miles over many years helping us with all sorts of amazing things. He's a very, very clever fellow. If he's in the room, he's the smartest guy in the room.
Oh.
It's true. What have you got for us?
We have some dashboard pieces for you.
All right, let's go have a look. So as well as, of course, updating the engine and interior of the car, we also want to update the entertainment. So inside this box, there's fancy things. Miles is going to get some of those things out. What we're actually trying to do is replace the factory entertainment system. Look at this, a Clarion cassette player with some of the modern kind of conveniences and entertainment that you get with a modern Subaru. So we're putting in this, which is a double-din unit here, which will run CarPlay as well. Obviously the car is not designed to accommodate that. Insert Miles. What have we made? What have we got?
So
tell us everything.
Everything. All right. So we have, this is the stock piece of Brumby dashboard that is now 2 bits of stock Brumby dashboard. So that normally sits like that. You've got your Clarion deck in there. So I cut that out. Then we 3D scanned what was left over.
Yep.
And then
That was one of those little handgun things?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Cool. Can't they cost like millions of dollars sometimes?
They do, but they don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good.
There's a scale. And then we designed this in Fusion 360.
That's solid.
And printed it out of resin.
Now don't even start to tell me that that's going to adapt this modern head unit fits into this.
Well, that's
because the whole internet is about to go wild if that's the case. Don't do the insertion shot. Don't even do it.
Don't do it?
Stop it. That is unreal. Dude, that is so cool. So there you go. That's converting Brumby stuff to modern stuff. You're very clever, Miles.
Thank you, mate.
Well done.
And there's a little pocket here too, so you can put your change or your whatever you're going to put in there.
Oh, that goes in there.
That goes in there like that.
Should we see if it actually fits in the car, or is there some other stuff that needs to go in there first before we can attach this?
We should probably attach this to this first and
Yes.
then try to put it in the car and then probably put the interior of the car in first.
Nice. So we can get our centre console sitting just right, we're going to install some new moulded carpet to replace the rat-infested vinyl that came out of the Brumby. We're using the old stuff as a template and cutting the carpet to fit. This always requires a bit of fiddling to get it just right, but once it's in, it'll look great, and as a bonus, it'll keep the cabin a bit quieter too.
Here's an update, people. Aaron's dropped in, getting carpet in. It's a bit of a tricky job, not an easy one at all. I messed around with the shifter for hours and hours and hours and hours, and it's coming good. Miles, we're about to get on some speakers because we can't hear our mad system without speakers in the door. Starting to put some sound deadening in there to make it sound nice. Done a heap of painting. All our interior bits have been painted up. Now it's time for speakers and wiring and trims and just little bits and pieces that sort of make it come together. But it's starting to look like a car in there now. Really, really cool.
A few more mates dropped in, grabbed some tools and helped us out. I'm constantly amazed at how motivating kebabs can be.
The final 5%. This is where you got to stay strong. Hold your resolve. Hold the line. Be determined. Be courageous.
and insert the indicators.
Well, yeah, and put on trims and stuff that has been sitting there being painted and being fixed, and then trying to find those parts that went missing. And also fixing stuff that's broken. So far, I've been really lucky. Not much stuff has actually broken or gone wrong, and here I am waving this right now on fresh paint.
Yeah, get me
it's
worried.
that. It's kind of like
Let's
that.
take a step forward.
Yep. And so, so now it's a matter of testing it. The thing moves under its own power, which is great, but I'm not entirely happy with the shifter, so it's going to be back on the hoist and make sure that it shifts gears properly, because then things like wheel alignments have to happen. And of course, engineering.
Take the wheel, let's go, I'll follow you. Say my name, I'll do anything you wanna do. On the run, we're chasing headlights. The road destroyed, let's make some noise. We'll make the whole world hear us tonight. And I need you now, more than ever.
It is looking absolutely incredible, but you can't see any more yet. You got to wait. You have to wait till the next episode. There's a couple of tiny... Oh, dude. That seat looks fantastic.
Doesn't it? It fits, like, brilliantly. There's a few finishing touches that we are gonna make you wait, because we want to drive it, we want to take it somewhere epic, we want to do all the little things and just show you when it looks like $1 million.
No matter what you're into, there is a car for everybody, and every car has a story.
And over the last 50 years or so, a lot has changed over those decades with the advancement of technology, the ability of the cars to do all the things you need to do in your daily life, and of course, the styling.
But what is it that makes a car a classic? What is that quintessential piece of magic that makes a car's spirit live on for decades after it's been released?
Is it just pure numbers and penetration and then just everywhere, or is it like motorsport or rally heritage?
Well, we had the opportunity to drag an old Subaru Brumby out of a barn in the Blue Mountains just west of Sydney and embark on the biggest automotive project in Mighty Car Mods history.
We restored it right back to new paint. It's one of the biggest jobs we've ever done. It tested us, late nights, long days, but we got it done, and we are so happy with how it's turned out.
Today we're going to be driving it for the very first time, plus handing it over to Subaru officially and seeing what they think of the Mighty Car Mods Subaru Brumby build. It's hard to believe that this is the same car that we dragged out of an orchard shed 6 months ago. This was a way bigger project than we could have anticipated, but what an incredible transformation it's gone through.
These days, it's easy to buy into the use it and then chuck it away mentality that surrounds us. Consume it, bin it, and go again. Cars aren't always like this though. It may have been purchased merely as a tool to move people or materials around, or maybe someone saved for years to buy their dream car or even their first car. We spend so much time in them navigating our way through life that some of them just seem to stick. That journey can last for decades, and in the case of our Brumby, like so many others out there, it did 2 decades working on a farm. The next decade was spent waiting in a barn for someone to come along and then begin a new journey. And that's where it found us, and with some time and effort, we've got it ready for its next decade.
We are in the Brumby for the very first drive. We're up here at 70 North, which is a property that one of our mates owns, and he's let us use it for the day so we can test out the car. It's working.
It's driving. It's an EJ powered Brumby. It's got a Forester driveline, an EJ20, a 5-speed gearbox. It's now all-wheel drive instead of front-wheel drive, and it drives really, really nicely.
It's absolutely bellissimo. These seats as well, fantastic.
So comfortable.
So good.
I'm really happy with how it turned out. Now, it's a way bigger job than I could have anticipated. Until you do it, you don't know what you're in for. But it's all come together, you know, like it looks restored. It still has the old school flavour going on, but it does have some nice modern touches, like it shifts really nice. The clutch feels really good. It doesn't feel old.
What do you reckon was the hardest part of the build? Like the thing that you kind of thought ended up being harder than you expected?
I think making the decision to go all-wheel drive, because Brumbies are four-wheel drive, but they're selectable, and most of the time you drive them around in front-wheel drive, and then when you pull that lever, it goes four-wheel drive. Now, Brumby purists will tell you that's great and it locks and it is a good thing for off-road, but we're trying to make something that's a bit more of a road car. and it's still capable, but sort of a really nice sort of street car, something you can actually use every single day. Also, it's really hard to get Brumby parts now, whereas
Yes.
Forester stuff you still can. So by going EJ, we've now got, you know, injection, we've now got a high pressure fuel system, we've got all this sort of nice modern computer controlled stuff that makes it a bit nicer to drive. We've added power steering.
And we're also really lucky that we ended up getting that second Brumby at the same time, because with a project of this scope, the car's just blown apart everywhere. And right near the end, we're like, where are those trims? Where are those bits? And we're like, we don't know where they are. So luckily, we could salvage them from the second Brumby that we got, and it donated a bunch of its parts to this project as well.
So when you're colour changing a car, when you're going to this level of restoration, like, it's huge and it takes a long time, heaps of hours, stuff you can't anticipate. But all the different elements have come together really nice. It's not a show car. That wasn't really the aim to build a show car. It's just to build something you can drive on the road and enjoy. Makes good power, shifts nicely. It's kind of a comfortable and nice place to be.
So it feels great on the road, but these cars were made for the grass, they were made for the mud, they were made for the farm. So let's leave the tarmac and see what we can find. We've just head off the tarmac. We're going to do a little bit of grass, a little bit of trail, man, just see how it goes. Nothing too hectic, even though we are the world's best four-wheel driving channel. Today, we're the world's best all-wheel driving channel.
All the Brumby purists are like turning over going, but you used to have selectable, and they're right. That's true, that's fine if you're doing this all the time. Maybe if you end up owning it, you can swap back a Brumby transmission into it.
Oh, imagine that,
That'd be
doing it all again.
It's working, it's off-road, and we actually did it. This is exactly what the Brumby was originally developed for way back in the 70s. A practical ute that you can drive to the shops, drive around your farm, or drive across the country. A few bumps on the grass is one thing, but we want to see how it handles some off-road trails, without scratching it, of course.
Creek crossing, no way.
All right, and we're about to cross a creek, Martin.
Just don't want to damage it. Oh, no, it's loving it, dude.
Yep, we're through.
Look at this. Hey!
Let's go, little Brumby.
How cool.
Let's go, let's go. Will we get up the other side, Martin? That's
no
the question.
muddies. You've got no muddies. Man, I haven't even flicked low range yet, just to prove
Just loves it.
Just
Just absolutely loves it.
Just to prove a point, no low range. Let's do it. All right, now we got low range, dude.
Yes.
How good's that? Look, it crawls along. I'm glad I got to use it finally. This is awesome, man.
Brumby in its natural habitat. I mean, we don't have any goats in the back, not yet, but
Never know, we might pick up a goat somewhere.
time for me to wind out my little handle. There we go. Nice.
Look at it go, dude. The thing I've been most impressed, actually, with how things have turned out has been the ride quality.
Yes.
Like, it's just, it feels really good and really new, and you're in nice new seats.
Yep.
New shocks up the front, lift kit ones in the back. Like, it's just, that side of things just works so well. Haven't had to fight that at all.
No,
The lift
and
and the
we're
suspension.
on. This is a pretty rough track, dude.
It is. The lift and the suspension have just been excellent. Had to fight with other things like getting it to shift and, you know, fitting everything in's been challenging.
Yep.
But this, the actual ride quality, brilliant. Taking my time.
Can't wait to head back up this hill.
Yeah.
We're good.
We're good, man.
The Brumby's just eating it for breakfast.
And that's being held just in first gear in low range.
Yep.
And it's just sort of rolling down, a little bit of brake here and there. Can you hear that?
I can hear water.
What's...
Are we losing water?
Oh, no, look. Look, look, look.
This is the Brumby in its natural habitat. And check out what we found. A waterfall. This is awesome. Look at this. I didn't think we were going to be getting a four-wheel drive adventure in today as well.
Look at that. That's spectacular. Wow.
Yeah, Brumby. Yeah, Brumby. Let's have a look at this.
When I was about 7 years old, my best mate in primary school, his dad worked at the local Subaru dealership. He'd bring home L-Series and Brumbies and early Subaru Liberties. Then he brought home an RS Turbo and some WRXs, and I was completely hooked. We had a few Subarus in the family. I learnt to drive in one, and then I owned a bunch over the years. You guys have seen it on the show. But if you told 7-year-old me that 30-something years in the future, you and your mates would be restoring something like this, and then it would go back to Subaru Australia, I would never have believed you. Should we try and get out of this trail?
Let's try and get out of this trail. If we can get out of here.
today is a special day because the Brumby is registered, it's engineered, and we're taking it on a very special trip to see a very special person. Getting the Brumby engineered was, I'm going to be honest, was a painful experience. A car this old, when you've changed so many things, everything has to be picked over and checked with a fine-tooth comb. Because we used a lot of stuff from the one car from the Forester, it made it easier than it could have been, but still everything has to be tested and brake tested, and it had to happen a couple of times to make sure it passed all the relevant things, and that had to happen before it could be registered, and we couldn't take it on a proper drive before it had number plates and was registered. So today's the day. It's about 200 or 250 k's round trip. I'm gonna go see someone special. G'day, Bill.
You're back.
There's something missing. Where's the shed?
Well, we didn't have the Subarus to store.
So you got rid of it?
So the shed's been removed and a bigger one's being built.
A bigger shed's being built. That's what I like to hear. Good to see you, man.
Yeah, same.
What do you think?
I think it's great. I think it's great the work that you guys have done.
Thanks,
but
mate.
I think it's also great that what's going to happen with it.
Oh, yeah.
And I've been amazed at the response that I've seen on, from people to it.
And just to remind people, how did you end up with this car again?
This car was originally my sister-in-law's. She had goats, and they weren't Toggenburg goats. She used to show them, and she had it with
goats?
Yeah, she had a cover on a canopy on the back, and then she got married and had no further use for it. We bought it. Being a bit obsessed with Subarus, I ended up being given another one, and then buying another one for spare parts. At one stage, the shed here had two of them in it.
It's kind of good though. I mean, the fact it ended up in the shed and out of the weather, you see so many cars, even driving up here today, I saw so many cars left outside and it just kills them. Being inside, left inside something like that and stored up, they survived because actually this had almost no rust in it. Almost none. I think we had a tiny bit along the tray where they all rust.
Yes.
But otherwise it was perfect. A bit of dirt on it. That's kind of it though.
It's worked out well.
It has worked out very well. Thank you again for making it all possible.
Pleasure.
I'm glad that we got to show it to you again as well.
Oh yeah, no, that's really great. It's good that it's come back to
come home.
Its original home. Yeah.
Now it's going to a new home. There it is. The Subaru Brumby. What an epic build that was. Ended up right where we began at Shields Orchard with Bill with a very, very nice looking Brumby.